boys and girls, and welcome. Let's dive into a good book. Today, we're going to read Mrs. Bryce's Mice, story and illustrations by Sid Hoff. Can you say Sid Hoff? Mrs. Bryce's Mice. Mrs. Bryce had 25 mice. Here they all are. She fed her mice the finest cheese. She washed and dried them behind their ears so they were always clean. Oh, I get it. Oh, look at her. Mrs. Bryce loved to sing for them. When she played the piano, 24 little mice danced around her. One very small mouse danced on top of her hand. He was afraid to fall between the keys. When Mrs. Bryce went to bed, 12 little mice slept on one side of her. 12 little mice slept on the other side. One very small mouse slept on the clock in case he wanted to know what time it was. Yeah, there he is. In the morning, Mrs. Bryce did exercises. She stretched her arms and legs. She bent over and touched her toes with her fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 24 little mice did exercises too. They stretched, wee. They bent, woo. They touched their toes, whoa. And one very small mouse kept on sleeping. I think that mouse's name was Dr. Paul. It is time for our walk, said Mrs. Bryce. 12 little mice walked in front of her. 12 little mice walked in back. One very small mouse sat on top of Mrs. Bryce's hat so he could see where they were going. He saw a cat, el gato. 12 little mice ran this way. 12 little mice ran that way. Ooh, look at that cat. One very small mouse jumped down on the ground and ran this way and that. He ran so many different ways that cat got tired of chasing him and went back to whatever he had been doing. What a clever little mouse you are, said Mrs. Bryce. Now we can go buy some food. 24 little mice sat in a cart and enjoyed the ride. One very small mouse sat in front. They went up one aisle. They went down another. Mrs. Bryce bought food in cans, food in jars, cold food, hot food. Now we can go home, said Mrs. Bryce. 24 little mice were glad. But one very small mouse kept on leading the way. He led them to the dairy counter. Mrs. Bryce bought a nice big cheese. Then she and her mice went home to eat it. After they ate, Mrs. Bryce sang and played the piano. 24 mice danced around her. One very small mouse kept right on eating. Goodbye, everybody. Hope you're being safe at home.